My mom was standing in the kitchen holding her phone like it was a weapon, and the first thing she said when I walked through the door was, "So you told a stranger you wish you were never born, but you couldn't tell me?" I need to rewind because that sentence alone doesn't capture how badly everything fell apart, and honestly, I'm still not sure who I should be angry at. Maybe everyone, maybe myself. But let me start from the beginning so you can actually judge this fairly. Yeah. My name's Elijah. I was 17 when all of this happened, a junior at a mid-sized public high school in Oregon. I'm the middle kid, older sister who's already in college, younger brother who's 12 and basically lives on his Xbox. My parents are still together, which I know sounds like it shouldn't matter, but it does for context. From the outside, my family looks completely fine. Nice house, 2 cars, family dinners most nights. My mom works in insurance, and my dad manages a warehouse. They're not bad people. I want to be really clear about that because what I'm about to tell you might make them sound terrible, and the truth is more complicated than that. The thing about my family is that we don't really talk about feelings. Like, ever. If you're upset, you go to your room. If you're angry, you cool off. If you're sad, my dad will say something like, "What do you have to be sad about?" Not in a mean way exactly. More in a genuinely confused way, like sadness is a math problem and he can't find the variable. My mom is a little better. But her version of emotional support is buying you your favorite snack and changing the subject. I love them. But I learned pretty early that the deal in our house was keep it light, keep it moving, don't make things weird. So when the school announced at the beginning of junior year that every student would get 2 free sessions with the new school counselor, MS, Adler, as part of some mental wellness initiative, I almost didn't go. I figured it would be 20 minutes of Are You Sleeping Enough and a pamphlet about stress. But my English teacher, who I actually respected, said it might be worth it. She said MS. Adler was cool, different, so I signed up for a slot during study hall. Here's what you need to know about what was going on with me at that point. I wasn't in crisis. I want to be honest about that. I wasn't planning to hurt myself, but I was in this really low, gray stretch of life where nothing felt like it mattered much. My grades were fine. I had friends. I played soccer in the fall. But underneath all of that, I had this constant hum of, I don't even know what to call it, emptiness. It was like everyone around me was living in color, and I was watching everything through a window. I'd been feeling that way for about a year, maybe longer, and I hadn't told anyone because I genuinely didn't have the language for it, and also because I didn't think anyone in my life would know what to do with that information. There was also something specific that had happened the summer before. My grandpa on my dad's side passed away, and I took it harder than I expected. We weren't super close, but he was the one person in my family who ever asked me real questions, not how's school, but like, what are you thinking about these days? When he died, it felt like the one door I had to being actually known by someone in my family just closed. I cried about it once, alone in my car in a parking lot, and then I never cried about it again. I just pushed it down the way I'd been taught to push everything down. And that worked for a while, the way it always does, until it didn't. So I walked into MS, Adler's office during fourth period on a Tuesday. She had one of those small rooms near the front office with a fake plant and a box of tissues and a white noise machine outside the door. She was youngish, maybe early 30s, and she didn't talk to me like I was a case file. She asked me what I liked to do. She asked me what I was watching on TV. And then, like 15 minutes in, she asked me a question nobody had ever asked me before. If you could say one thing out loud that you've never said to anyone, what would it be? And I don't know if it was the way she asked it, or the fact that the room was quiet, or the fact that I'd been holding everything in for so long that my chest literally hurt sometimes, but I said it. I said, sometimes I wish I was never born, not because I want to die, but because existing feels like a chore and I didn't sign up for it. She didn't flinch, she didn't grab a clipboard. She just nodded and said, "Thank you for trusting me with that." And then we talked for another 20 minutes about what I meant, and I explained that it wasn't suicidal ideation, it was more like this deep fatigue with being alive, and she said she understood the difference, and that what I was describing sounded like it could be depression. She said she wanted me to come back for the second session. She said everything I shared was between us. I specifically asked, "You're not going to call my parents, right?" And she said, "What you tell me here is confidential unless I believe you're in danger of hurting yourself or someone else. And based on what you've told me, that's not what I'm hearing." I believed her. I left that room feeling lighter than I had in months. For the first time in maybe a year, I felt like someone actually heard me. 3 days later, my mom was standing in the kitchen with her phone, and my whole world cracked open. What happened was this: MS. Adler had called my mom. Not the next day, not after our second session, but the same evening after our first meeting. She told my mom that I had expressed feelings consistent with passive suicidal ideation and that she recommended I be evaluated by an outside therapist. She apparently used the phrase, "wish I was never born," directly. My mom, who had never heard me say anything like that, completely spiraled. She called my dad at work. She called my sister at college. By the time I got home from soccer practice, my entire family knew. My mom wasn't calm. She wasn't doing the gentle parent thing you see in movies. She was scared and angry, and when my mom is scared, it comes out as accusations. How long have you been feeling this way? Why didn't you come to us? Do you know what it's like to get a phone call like that at work? My dad was sitting at the kitchen table not saying anything, which was almost worse. He just kept rubbing his forehead like he was trying to physically push a thought into his brain. My younger brother was upstairs, but I guarantee he heard everything because my mom's voice carries through walls like it's made of glass. I tried to explain. I said it wasn't what it sounded like. I said I wasn't suicidal. I said I told MS. Adler that and she agreed. But my mom just kept saying, "You said you wished you were never born, Elijah. How is that not serious?" And honestly, I didn't have a good answer. Because when you strip the context away and just read that sentence on a piece of paper, yeah, it sounds terrifying. I get that, but context matters. Nuance matters. And the thing that made me the angriest was that MS. Adler had apparently delivered that sentence to my mother without any of the nuance I'd given her. She dropped a grenade into my family and then went home for the night. I didn't yell, I wanted to, but I didn't. I just said, I told her that in confidence. She said it was confidential. And my mom said, she's a mandated reporter, Elijah. She's required by law. And that's when I realized my mom wasn't on my side. She was on MS Adler's side. She was grateful for the call. Everything got worse from there. My dad, who never talks about anything emotional, suddenly decided this was the moment to become a full-time therapist. Every morning before school, he'd look at me with this painfully intense eye contact and say, "How are you doing today, bud?" Like he'd read one article on parenting and was now determined to apply it robotically for the rest of my life. My sister called me from college and cried on the phone for 40 minutes, which made me feel like I had ruined her week, her month, her semester. My mom made me an appointment with an outside therapist, which, fine, I understand, but she also told my aunt. And my aunt told my cousins. And within a week, my entire extended family knew that Elijah was going through something, which is family code for watch him carefully and treat him like he's made of wet paper. I went back to school and asked to see MS Adler. I sat down in that same chair and I said, "You told me it was confidential." She looked uncomfortable and she said, "Elijah, I had to make a judgment call. What you described to me could be interpreted as passive suicidal ideation, and as a mandated reporter, I'm required to act if I believe a minor could be at risk." I said, "But you told me you didn't think I was at risk." In this room to my face. "You said that," and she paused. She actually paused. And then she said, "I consulted with my supervisor after our session, and we decided together that it was safer to inform your parents." I just stared at her. Because what she was really saying was, "I made you a promise in this room, and then I broke it an hour later after talking to someone else." I said, "I will never talk to you again." And I meant it. The thing is, my friends found out too. Not because my family told them, but because my mom called the school to talk to the principal about monitoring me, and somehow, I still don't know exactly how word got to my soccer coach, who pulled me aside at practice and said he was there for me. A couple of my teammates were standing close enough to hear. Within a day, two of my closest friends texted me asking if I was okay, and I had to have this conversation I never wanted to have with people I never wanted to have it with. Not because they wouldn't understand, but because it was supposed to be mine. That feeling, that sadness, that confession, it was the one thing I had ever given to someone voluntarily, and it got passed around like a group project nobody asked to be part of. Here's the part that really messed me up, and I didn't find out about this until weeks later. My sister told me during winter break. Apparently, when MS Adler called my mom's first instinct wasn't to come talk to me. It was to call my dad and say, and this is a direct quote according to my sister, who overheard it, "What did we do wrong?" Not, "Is Elijah okay?" Not, "How do we help him?" Her first reaction was to wonder if she was a bad parent. And look, I understand that reaction on a human level. I'm not heartless. But it also confirmed everything I'd always believed about my family, that my feelings were never really about me. They were about how my feelings made other people feel. That's why I never talked to them in the first place. And the cruel irony is that MS. Adler's phone call, the one that was supposed to help me, proved exactly why I'd been keeping everything inside for 17 years. Because the moment I opened my mouth, it stopped being my pain and became everyone else's emergency. So here's where things are now. It's been about 4 months. I am seeing that outside therapist, and honestly, she's good. She actually listens and she hasn't called anyone. My relationship with my parents is functional but weird. My mom still watches me too closely. My dad still does the eye contact thing. I don't talk to MS. Adler at all, and I requested to be removed from any future sessions with her, which the school allowed. I don't regret what I said in that room. I regret who I said it to. And I go back and forth every single day on whether she did the right thing. Because part of me knows that mandated reporters exist for a reason, and that some kid in that same chair might actually be in danger, and that erring on the side of caution saves lives. I know that. But another part of me, the part that sat in that office and exhaled for the first time in a year, feels like something sacred got stolen from me. I trusted someone, and they made a choice that blew up my entire life. So tell me honestly, was MS Adler right to make that call, or did she break a promise that should have been kept?